Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, episode 79, brought to you as always by our incredible friends over at Waggle Golf. Make sure, if you haven't already, get over to getyourwaglon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Great episode queued up for you guys here today. We're going to kick it off with Joe Smith of The Athletic jumping in for some Minnesota Wild talk. Kirill Kaprizov contract. Got to talk, of course, about the John Hynes Q&A that he and Russo wrote about for The Athletic, and speculative talk about a very exciting development, a Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame. Then we kick it over, of course, this might be a tradition at this point, 2 years running, Minnesota Vikings season preview with the Athletic beat writer for your Minnesota Vikings, Alec Lewis. And do want to tease, if anyone missed it, this past week, we did have an episode with 4 esteemed Gopher hockey alums out at their alumni golf tournament at Legends Golf Club. Check that one out if you did miss it, and stay tuned this coming week. Corey Pronman breaking down his assessment of what he labeled the number 14 prospect pool. I guess pipeline is the way he labels it. So tune in next week for that. Without further ado, though, kick it over to Joe. All right, for some Minnesota Wild talk. It finally happened, Joe. We got the Marco Rossi contract done. We can basically put that all to bed and stop worrying about it until everyone starts the trade rumors right away, as we all imagine they will. But we're on to Kirill Kaprizov now. What's going on?
Yeah, well, Kirill Kaprizov is scheduled to be back in Minnesota coming up in the next week or so. Bill Guerin did have his annual appearance at the State Fair last week on Cave Fan and talked about how he's comfortable and, quote, confident about where things are with talks. We believe that he'll have a sit-down or a face-to-face meeting with Kirill once he's in town, which makes sense, just so things don't get lost in translation between him and the agent, all summer. So I think that'll be a good point to figure out where things are. We don't think that money is going to be an issue here. I think, like Craig Leopold said last year, no one will be able to offer more money than the Wild will. They can offer 8 years, of course. But I think it'll just be a matter of getting face to face, talking to him, and everything that Kirill has said publicly, at least to us, is that he loves it in Minnesota and likes the team and what they're building. And so it'll just be a matter of, if he does and he really wants to stay, then it shouldn't necessarily be a problem. So, but a lot has to happen before that does get signed. But I think the way Bill Guerin talked last week was that, there are certain things he knows that he can't say probably, or doesn't make sense to go negotiating through the press or the State Fair. But, the fact that he does seem comfortable and confident, readers or listeners can take that what they will. But I think after a longer summer of nothing, quote unquote, happening, I think to actually have him in town will make a big difference. I think for both sides, it'd be better for them to finish it off before training camp starts or the season starts. Like, it doesn't have to be a story all year round, or in case of panic mode for Wild fans. Like, he's their best player that they've ever had, and it's really, really, really important that they sign him. And Kirill will be offered a mountain of wealth if he wants to stay and enjoy the beauty of Minnesota and the probably more anonymity that he would have here versus if he were in a different market too. Even as crazy as hockey fans are here, I think he can kind of be himself versus maybe going into a different place. But we'll let him speak for himself and see how that goes in the next week.
Yeah, and it is just a bummer the timing didn't work out. It could have been the biggest event at Minnesota State Fair in its history if he showed up and inked it there with Billy. That would have been something.
That had some cheese curds and had some sort of spot with the food, or pizza on a stick, or which is my personal favorite. But yeah, that would have been, have the press conference at the grandstand or whatever, but
signs it and then immediately eats all the food he can, goes into a coma. Oh no. That people are freaking out, some in a positive, some calm down, we knew this way, but 8x16 is what's rumored to be on the table right now. I don't know, maybe this is just me, but that's not really all that shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I think we felt or thought along that it would be in that 8 times 15 range, and I think my colleague Mike Russo might have mentioned 8 times 16, or we believe it could be up to that point. None of that would surprise me per se. Like you look at the cap going up and the salaries that guys will get, and I think McDavid will write his own check. And in Edmonton, we don't know what his deal will be. I don't know if one person's waiting for the other to see where that number is, but Kirill Kaprizov's in like the top 1% of the league in terms of players, and he's a very important player to this franchise. So I don't think the Wild are going to nickel and dime him and try to, wiggle out of something here. I think that they're going to provide a very, very fair offer and one that'll, um, you know, be good for Kaprizov generations to come. And then it's just a matter of him and only has one career. He can decide for himself if he wants to stay, if he thinks, 8 years is a long time. That's the rest of his career pretty much. And so you have to decide, hey, like, can I win in this environment? Is this team built he wants to win more than anything else in the world. And so I think that's the key factor in here, less than money or signing bonuses. I really think that, Garrett and the group, want to win too. And just a matter of are they on the same page? And if does Krill want to spend 8 years? Does he have an idea of wanting to do 3 and 4 and seeing what that looks like?
Yeah.
I don't think that would be, if it were me and I'm the Wild, I wouldn't have a problem with signing him to a 3 or 4 year deal. He'll be 29 when that deal starts. Like,
Okay.
So I don't know if he would want that, but that's a way to be like, well, how do I, give me some space here? Like, let's see if this works where we can see if this contending team we see building happen, or if it's not, then you're not kind of, not say stuck, but you're locked in for 8 years and you're pretty much your last big contract. So interesting situation, and players they only have this opportunity very rare time. So take his time.
And it is interesting because I probably fall right around 4 being my cutoff. There's some people that are like, I wouldn't sign him for anything less than 5. But I mean, would be comfortable if 3 is where Kirill's camp came back and said, yep, this is what we're willing to do?
Well, I mean, I think, you probably want to push it more as you can, maybe at least a 4 or something like that. He has 1 year left on his contract as it is. So maybe the next 5 years would be with him. Right. But, I think 3 years is on the shorter side, but I'm just saying from a player perspective, if I want to give myself a chance to see how it goes, and then also I'll be a free agent at age 32, whatever.
And it's holding Bill Guerin's feet to the fire. Like, hey, prove it. I wouldn't begrudge him for it. It would also make things very interesting for us to talk about, but longer term, the better, please.
Yeah. I think if the Wild would sign him for 8 years, I'm sure tomorrow, but it's a matter of where they both see it. And maybe they've got a pretty good sense of the agreement. They just want him to be in town to do like the in-person thing and see, make sure everything's all settled in. And then maybe there isn't a big announcement for the Wild, but I think it's going to be coming to a head more. At least we'll have a better indication once he's in town and they're able to talk.
Fair. Speaking of talking, the one of the more recent drops for you guys on The Athletic, John Hynes Q&A. What are some nuggets we pulled out of there?
Yeah, well, I think one of the interesting things was when Tarasenko was acquired, he had mentioned that Hynes offered to come down and meet with them this summertime, and he did a couple of weeks ago. Hynes flew down to Florida, where Tarasenko lives in the offseason and trains, and went over to Tarasenko's house and had a family dinner with him and his wife and their kids, and spent 5 hours there and really had a chance to get to know him as a player and as a person and his family, and left with leftovers, she said. So I took that back to the hotel before he flew out the next day. But I think that's really important in the case of Tarasenko. People I've talked to who've coached him or been around him, like, he can be a very emotional player, and he likes to have that communication level with the coaches and likes to know where things stand, where he fits, what his role is. And so I think the fact that Hynes made that effort to go there and see him, the Wild are always banking on him having a fresh start and a bounce back year. So I think that was a really good start for them to have that conversation, that meetings where Hynes and him are on the same page. So that'll just build that relationship more and more. Will Tarasenko be like the 30+ goal scorer that he's been in previously in his career? We don't know or can't guarantee that, but he's still could be a very productive player. they're to give him every chance to succeed. I think, at least maybe starting on the second line, perhaps with the Rossi and Boldy, like you're going to be given chances. You'll also be getting really good D pairs up against you as well in that scenario. So it's the kind of the both sides of it. But I'm really curious to see what he looks like in training camp. And for all I've been told by people is that he embraces kind of the mentor role this part of his career. So I think he'll have a really good influence. A guy like Danilo Yurov.
Nice. And yeah, what do you think about that for a starting second line? Boldy, Rossi, Tarasenko, and then I guess to round out the top six, would you assume that the first line is trying again with Kaprizov, Ek, and Zuccarello?
That would be my guess or our read from where things stand now. Like, and people will be like, well, they've already tried the Zuccarello Kaprizov thing, and it's on the older side. But I think you need to maximize out every single player you have. It's no secret that Zuccarello's production dropped off when he wasn't with Kirill, which most people's production would drop off if they're not with one of the world's best players. But, let's see if that goes back to work. They could always just switch it back and go to that nuclear line of Kaprizov, Boldy, and Ek, right? We don't know where Yurov will slot in, right? I think they're all curious to how he looks. Like, he can be a top six center, he can be a top six winger, he can be a third line center. Kind of the world is his. Like, he has to show what he can do, and they want to find out what he's capable of, at least to start, right? So that'll be another part of the jigsaw puzzle of where he fits in. It's where you slot down the Hartman, Foligno. Hartman played terrific in the playoffs. Will he continue that during the regular season? So I think lines are the most fascinating thing that people talk about, but also like it changes so much, right? Like it changes so much in training camp, changes much during the season, but it's a fun starting point for people to see, oh, how do these combos look? And you can't fake chemistry. You can't create it. It's there a lot of times, just instinctively. So I think we'll find out in training camp for those lines. But that's kind of another thing that Hynes talked about in that Q&A with Mike Russo in Michigan as well. So, but that'll be fun to see how those guys shake out.
Definitely. Anything else big from that, or just anything topical for you right now that's more a focus on, hey, this is something I want to watch going into training camp?
Well, I want to see like how the young D look. Like Brody is expected to miss the beginning of the season. We don't think it'll be that long, but he'll still be limited during camp and then missing the first part of the season. So how does your check look? He showed up, I think, August 3rd in Minnesota and been working out with the coach, with like the staff, I think, with the working on skating, working on his strength. Like, he knows it's a big year. I'm curious how he looks. And Zeev, both be given every chance to make the lineup as regulars. So how does Jack Johnson fit? Is Jack Johnson on a PTO? What are his chances of making the team? So I think that'll be one thing I look at, besides the obvious of the Yurov is the most fascinating one to me, since I haven't seen him play very much. So I think that'll be one for me. And the goaltending, like, I think where's Wallstedt's headspace at? Where is he looking conditioning wise? I think the Wild are hoping and betting the fact that he knows where he will be this year. It's not a 3-goalie system. He's not going to be in Iowa throughout the year. He'll be an NHL player this year, and he can mentally prepare for that all summer, and he can stay here. He didn't have to have an apartment in Minnesota and then have it empty all year because he's in Iowa. This is his place, his chance to be a number 2 with Philip Gustafson. And then I think that clarity might help him have a better season. Plus, having Gustafson been talking about helping him a little bit. Marc-Andre Fleury, we believe, will be around the team. We don't know if he'll have exact role yet, or they're trying to give him some time to work his way into that before joining the team. But I think he will be around as a presence. So that's obviously a good resource to have for both Gus and for Wallstedt. But I think those are some of the things that are really more interesting to me as we get headed towards training camp.
Very fair. The other thing that I know wanted to mention was the Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there's they had an announcement, I believe it was last week, where there's a local group, putting together a really comprehensive plan with plans to break ground in like June of next year It'll be a $70 million facility that'll be like a 5-wing hall, like that'll have a hockey rink. It'll have like potentially a concert venue there, a place that they can make like a community hub. So Natalie Darwitz is one of the people who was locally behind it. They have a lot of advisory board members like a Lou Nanny, a lot of ambassadors that are Minnesota kind of legends in the game, like the TJ Oshis and all that stuff, and the Paul Martins. So they have a lot of support locally for it, but it's like a big project, and they're working on all the funding in the actual site in the Twin Cities area. But I think if you're, I think it's long overdue to have a Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame, considering the history of the sport in this area, and just think of what kind of fun it would be to project the first Hall of Fame class,
That would be overwhelming, to say the least. And is this, to your understanding, is this just people who are like from Minnesota, or does this include like, hey, we've got, Logan Cooley and Matthew Nyes, who aren't Minnesotans but played for the Gophers, or Mikko Koivu, who's not Minnesotan but played for the Wild? Like, is it truly just people who are from here, or all encompassing?
It's all encompassing, and they're putting together an advisory board, going through their criteria. They also have several years before the first class will be put out there. But like Lou Nanny was going to be in it, right? Like, and he didn't grow up in Minnesota, but he had such a 60 years of history in Minnesota. So you don't have to be born or from here or from Edina to make the Minnesota Hockey Hall of Fame. You have a significant imprint on hockey in Minnesota, then absolutely. I'm sure a guy like Mike Madonna would be part of it, at some point, like guys that play here had significant impacts on the game. Like the big names like you're thinking about right now are like the Mariucci's, right? He would be on there. And then all the female hockey players, like I can't imagine Natalie Darwitz wouldn't be on there, right. Like all the strong talent that come out of Minnesota from a female perspective. So, and as you can tell, like with the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, there was a backlog where you had to go back to like the 40s, right? Or back to the 50s, or like you'll probably have a lot of people who were
a lot of history there,
no longer with us, but people who will be inducted. So definitely a fun time if you're a hockey fan, and it'll be a place that they're trying to want to host tournaments there, and have different things like the jamborees, or like they have a Hall of Fame game, or they want to make sure that the public and everybody is kind of involved and makes it to not just a museum, but an all-encompassing thing. So I'm curious to see where it ends up, what area in the Twin Cities it'll be in. And I'm curious when they break ground, and then they won't have their first Hall of Fame class until after the building is already put together. So they won't start with just the class. They'll have the place, check it out, then they'll have their first Hall of Fame class.
Very cool. We'll have to keep tabs, and that'll just the speculation up until that of who will be in the first class, because there's just an endless list of who deserves and warrants that initial honoring.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you want to have some big name people that are obviously still with us that can be part of like the big show and go that day. And you want to have some history, but you also don't want to have a class of 40 people. Right. You want to have, You can't be like just 4, but it has to be a number of people, but they don't want it to be like the first induction ceremony having 25 people in it,
Yeah. I almost feel like the right number, and depends on what they're going to do year and year after that. I almost feel like just doing a double opening class. Like if their norm is going to be 4 or 5, do 8 to 10 for your opening induction ceremony.
Yeah, because you want to make sure it's special, right? You want to make sure everybody gets their own. That's what the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto does so well. Like you have the half dozen people, and then you have them each have their own stories told, and you have all those moments there. So I think that'll be a consideration for it.
Very cool. Well, all right. Well, without further ado, let's kick it over. We got a full Minnesota Vikings season preview here with Joe's colleague at The Athletic, Alec Lewis. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it, that makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Making his second appearance on Fellowship of the Rink, your Minnesota Vikings beat writer for The Athletic, Alec Lewis. Alec, after both of us went through some tech hiccups here, glad to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, I've got to be the least hockey enthusiast slash I don't know, like the lowest knowledge base of hockey of anyone who has ever joined the Fellowship of the Rink. I think I occupy that title. I would be surprised if someone had me. But yeah, sorry about the technical stuff. You would think someone who records his own podcast 2 times a week would be able to handle it, but apparently not. But no, good to be here on this Monday morning. A lot of football things going on, so it's good to chat.
Yeah, a lot of football things going on. And so how long have you been on the Vikings beat now?
Yeah, so I started in the fall of 2022. So August of 2022, I was covering the Kansas City Royals baseball team for The Athletic, and they came to me, or really I came to them. I was like, I'd love to cover some football. And they're like, what do you think of Minnesota? And I'm thinking the winter is probably not for me, but we have a damn good staff. And so I knew we had Michael Russo. I knew we had John Krasinski. I knew we had Dan Hayes and Aaron Gleeman. I did not know at the time that Joe Smith was going to be joining us, but it's an honor and a motivating factor every day as I go to work, knowing I get to do it alongside these guys.
So what's different here in your this would be 4th training camp. Math is hard. Is anything different, or is it all just kind of rinse and repeat year after year?
It actually is the 3rd training camp. So I started the first year I started. I remember it was like the week of the first game, and the Vikings are playing the Packers. It's Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's first game, and questions are being asked about Aaron Rodgers, and I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like I'm a fantasy football guy, and now I'm charged with actually writing definitive stories about this team. So what has changed? I guess. I mean, I don't know. You have more relationships. You have more intel. You're able to, kind of what people want to talk about, what people want to hear about. You kind of know the structure that Kevin O'Connell takes through training camp of what he cares about, what he does not care about, how he, what he places emphasis on, what actually matters in terms of what you're looking at. So just a lot different. And then, I mean, you go from 2022, where it is an older roster, quarterbacked by Kirk Cousins, and now you have the joy and the uncertainty and the mystery box that is J.J. McCarthy, surrounded by a roster that is loaded with high cost veterans, with revamped interior offensive and defensive line. So every year is so different from a roster construction standpoint and a just like intrigue standpoint. And this one, I'd say by far, even though that first year with Kevin O'Connell was highly anticipated, like the uncertainty and the hope and the dreams of what this season and beyond for this organization might be, like it's kind of a different energy, I would say, in terms of the vibes around it.
And what's your ramp up look like personally? Like, I know NFL of all sports is pretty like set. Like, this is when things happen in the calendar. Are you on year round, or like when are you kind of getting acclimated and back into the swing of things coming into training camp?
Yeah, if you ask my family and friends that question, they would laugh and they would say, we would love Alec to go off at some point. They do call a portion of the calendar the off season, but it does not feel like that because, I mean, truth be told, like the draft is as anticipated as any game week. I mean, like people love the NFL draft and the coverage and the planning and preparation for that. You know, it goes on for weeks and months, and then you get to free agency and people are fascinated by what the team's going to do. Then you go to the combine, and that's a week of drinking until 4 a.m, trying to acquire any morsel of information you can. Then you're in owners meetings in West Palm Beach, and then you're here at spring practice watching JJ McCarthy. And then it's the summer OTA. So like, as I talk it through, you start to realize just like how on and active it is. And then, I mean, you get to this time of year where training camp ended last Wednesday, roster cut down is Tuesday afternoon. We're speaking on Monday, and there is, I mean, roster machinations going on nonstop. There are cuts happening internally. There are cuts happening externally. There are trade conversations being had. There are agents asking about their play. Like it's a nonstop 24/7, 365 deal. And it's helpful when you're not like Joe Smith and you don't have a wife and a child to, to work through. So I was talking to somebody this morning and I'm like, if I'm not on at all times, what is my excuse? Because I don't have a life other than a girlfriend that deals with my nonstop work ethic and the other, family and friends stuff who have to navigate it too. But no, I mean, I love it. You could probably, hear it in the voice. Like I have such gratitude for the job that I get to do every day in this town with this fan base. And then alongside the staff that we have, I will never take that for granted because I know how hard these other guys work and the quality that they produce every day. And so if I'm not rising to that level, then what am I doing?
Yeah, that's fair. And I know this year's kind of been disappointing from a lot of your perspective, at least compared to other years for Hard Knocks with the Bills. Anything you got though for like the Vikings that's fun, like any interesting behind the scenes stories that you think would be like more featured if it was a Hard Knocks year for the Vikings?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah, the Hard Knocks, I watched the first 2 episodes of the Bills on HBO and I was like, I mean, this is hard to watch. I mean, they're talking about this linebacker, Buffalo Joe, and I'm like, to be honest, I don't care about the 4th-string linebacker from Buffalo. No, all seriousness. Man, the Vikings question is a good one. I mean, it's just I would just say, I mean, I'm not coming up with anything great. I would just say, I don't know, the vibes around this team, just like they've been the last 3 years, it's positive. It's high energy. I think like the players who would be featured if it were a Hard Knocks year would be Max Brosmer, the Golden Gopher quarterback, and what he's done to impress people internally. Like that's a no-brainer Hard Knocks story. This undrafted dude, Elijah Williams, who played at Morgan State, who came for a tryout and is impressed as a defensive line potential guy vying for the 53. If it were Hard Knocks, you'd probably have conversation right now about Adam Thielen and the idea that he, is a possibility to come back. And then JJ McCarthy. I thought like, man, if the Vikings ever did Hard Knocks, they love growing the brand. Like this year would have been incredible to do it. But probably to keep the attention off and the pressure off of the young quarterback and all that, like it just makes sense that they didn't do it. And I don't know if they even tried to do it. I have never asked that question, but yeah, I don't know. It's nothing crazy. I don't have like a behind the scenes locker room ping pong battle story for you. But, that's kind of where my mind goes with that question.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, we got to talk about JJ McCarthy, right? I think that's where the crux of the expectations and anticipation from fans starts and stops, right? How's his camp been? Like, what are we expecting going into this season?
I have no idea what we're expecting. That's the answer. No, I like people have asked a million times, how has JJ McCarthy's training camp been? And the stock answer that I've had is just like, I would say it's been up and down. There have been solid days. There was one great day on Thursday at joint practices. There have been days. There have been a couple days. So a lot of up and down, which is unsurprising for a guy of his age, shouldering the bulk of this offense. And the coaching staff has put him in difficult situations to see what he can handle and what he can. And I would say, you asked like, what is the expectation? And I gave my flippant answer, but I mean, look, I think this coaching staff and this infrastructure gives a guy a very high floor to be successful and to develop throughout the course of the season. So that's with JJ McCarthy. Like, I view it as early in the season, the run game and the front seven are kind of going to be the front seven defensively are kind of going to be the scaffolding of this team. And then you would hope by the back half of the season, JJ McCarthy feels comfortable enough and just like is rhythmic enough in the offense to where you can apply more to his plate and he can start to lift you in a way that I think everybody here believes he ultimately can. I mean, the arm strength has not been a question mark at all whatsoever. His hunger for growth has not been a question mark whatsoever. From an accuracy standpoint, there's been a little to be desired in that area. Processing the field, it's really hard to get a feel, but I feel like, for the most part, he seems to know kind of what he's looking at and is it forcing the ball into certain tight windows. So, again, like I don't, it's my job is to have this opinion and conviction about what a guy is going to be or isn't. But I would be lying if I told you that come Monday Night Football in Chicago 2 weeks from now, like I have any idea about what we're going to see when it's 3rd and 7 and JJ McCarthy is back there. Like I just, though when the bullets are flying at that level, it becomes kind of a reactive situation and with a lot of pressure. But like you have confidence in a guy who will turn over every stone to be as good as he could be. And so I think that's where if I were a fan, that's probably what would give me some kind of comfort.
That's good. And I don't know how much this impacts players in general, or especially a rookie quarterback with all these expectations on him, but I might misquote it, but I definitely got pissed off when I saw the Vikings schedule initially that we start Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, normal noon kickoff, and then 2 overseas 8:30 a.m. starts. I hate that as a fan because I just want my standard noon games, and I get one of them in the first 5 before we get the bye week. Is that kind of a schedule start something that has any kind of impact on how a player gets into the groove and kind of starts to get the feel for the season?
Like you could spin it both ways. I think like if someone had a tape, let's say they're, it's one of the national TV shows and it's like, it's going to be too much for JJ McCarthy to handle. Like, okay, that's one way to look at it. Or you could look at it of here's a guy who played in the college football playoff against Alabama in the Rose Bowl and was able to come through in that spot. Here's a guy who played in the national championship and was able to come through that spot. So maybe the national television person could have a take of JJ McCarthy thrives in these situations and he's going to step up in the prime time in the way that like, this is what he's built for. I could understand, probably either way to look at it. And again, both sidesing it in this, in my job probably isn't the greatest radio or podcast fodder, but I think I'd be lying if you have any conviction in terms of predicting whether that's good or bad for JJ McCarthy. Like I am of the belief that this is a guy who is going to thrive in prime time, who is going to kind of step up under pressure. Like that's just the sense that I get from him. Like it always feels like when the odds or the narratives are stacked against him, he's probably going to rise to the level, to his highest and peak level. So we'll see. I mean, it is a fascinating start. Like Monday night in Chicago, not going to be easy. Then you come home, Sunday Night Football at home. Can you imagine? I mean, the people listening to this, you guys can imagine the juice in that building for a Sunday Night Football home opener at US Bank Stadium with JJ McCarthy when they're announcing the starters. Like, I mean, it will be absolutely electric. And then, JJ McCarthy is, his wife is due, and then you're going overseas and what have you. So
maybe that's the best thing for him though. Like maybe being sent overseas with a newborn at home is just going to help his focus.
Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe that adds stress to his focus. Like
that's what we call this episode. I think we just call it maybe not.
Well, and it's not, again, like some of the other writers and people I'll do podcasts with, and they joke of like, you can't ride the middle every single time. And I'm not doing it as a cop-out. It's just like there is so much uncertainty. So to act like I am so convicted one way or another, I think would be like my job is to just call balls and strikes the way I see it. And so I again, like everything I've seen from JJ McCarthy would be that whatever you throw at him, overseas games, primetime games, he's going to attack it at the highest level. And then can that attacking, does that produce in game against really high level players and coordinators? We'll find out together. And that's, I've described this season as like the most fun mystery box possible because it is literally hope mixed with uncertainty, mixed with this fascinating character of a guy who won a national championship at Michigan, who didn't throw the ball a ton at Michigan, but not as a byproduct of his inability to throw the ball, more so as a byproduct of the way they wanted to structure their offense at Michigan. So it's fascinating in every respect. And it's why like the fervor around whether it's writing stories and the readership or hosting podcasts and the listenership, like that stuff is all there right now because of the intrigue in this season.
Yeah, and something you have a little bit more track record on, something that definitely impacts the quarterback, the run game. How do we feel going into this season with who we've got?
Yeah, I'd say if you're a Vikings person, you have to feel as good about this run game as you felt since Kevin O'Connell arrived. And it's mostly a byproduct of the new interior offensive line. When you replace Garrett Bradbury, Blake Brandell, and Dalton Reisner with Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and a first-round pick in Donovan Jackson. What is the biggest key for the run game? It's the people in front of the running back pushing vertically in the run game. Like that is the most important aspect. And that's the one thing that really hadn't changed in the 3 years that Kevin O'Connell had been here previously. So, or two, whatever it's been, 3 years that Kevin O'Connell had been here previously. So you have the improved on paper interior offensive line combined with, an addition at running back in Jordan Mason, who has looked really, really good in training camp from a physicality standpoint, from a vision standpoint. And then I also think of the screen game as an extension of the run game. And I felt like the screen game has looked as good as it's been in my time here. So I would say you add that together, and then you add the just the priority that the coaching staff has put on the run game. And it's hard not to feel really good about this phase of the team going into 2025. And I've said many times, both in writing and podcast and on the radio on KFAN, et cetera, we talked a lot about the run game for years now. I mean, Kevin O'Connell, after 2022, I remember sitting at a ballroom at the scouting combine in Indianapolis, and he's like, the run game's got to be better. Well, what'd they do that year? They moved on from Dalvin Cook. They made Alexander Mattison the lead back. They signed Josh Oliver, the run blocking tight end. The run game wasn't leaps and bounds better. And then it was a priority going into 24. And though they signed Aaron Jones and maybe it took a little bit of a step, like this is kind of the put up or shut up point part of the equation, in my opinion. Like you put, resources in the interior, you've put resources into the running back room, you've made it a priority as a coaching staff. Go out there and prove it. And they're going to have to, especially early in the season, to be as good as they want to be.
This is fair. Yeah, this is, of course, the 1 year that I'm not at all dialed in on fantasy football. I'm usually very uncomfortably locked in. Jordan Mason's the fantasy sleeper sweetheart at this point. I know anyone that predicts how a running back room is going to work out throughout the season is crazy with the injuries, change of game plan, whatever. To start the season, is he the number 2? Is he a 1B? Is it more split? What's the vision for this run game?
Yeah, the way they've described it is Aaron Jones is 1A and Jordan Mason is 1B. I mean, whether that means, people are always asking, what's the percentage split? I'd say, if it's 60-40, if it's 55-55, that's kind of the area in the I don't know, the brackets that I kind of see this as. The question is going to be in the red zone. does Jordan Mason get the bulk of the carries there? And that's obviously just critical and massive for fantasy, obviously, when touchdowns are what they are. As Terry McLaurin, the Commanders reach a 3-year, $96 million deal.
Well, they did.
Yeah. No, I'd say the Jordan Mason, hype in fantasy and the way people have talked about him, like everything I've seen would back that up. Like I would not argue if you take Jordan Mason or anybody listening to this is like, I'm drafting Jordan Mason here because I believe he's going to be a critical piece of this offense. Like I would not be surprised by that. And if I were you, I'd probably do the same thing. That's just have a lot of confidence. And people think of Jordan Mason as this like big-bodied power back, but his secret sauce, and I've said this many, many times, is his vision and his ability to press the hole and then find cutback lanes and split-second decision-making. Like people never talk about the running back position as a like mental brain power decision-making position, but you have milliseconds behind the line of scrimmage to make decisions, and the best guys are able to do that in very short split second kind of instances. So I really like Jordan Mason, and I think the 1A 1B strategy of kind of platooning those guys to keep both of them healthy is a very smart approach for the Vikings.
Yeah, and speaking of health / suspension, wide receiver room, like Justin Jefferson, is he good to go 100%? Is the rumors with Adam Thielen true with potentially subletting the Addison situation? Like where do you see this all falling into place?
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, I fully expect to kind of progress and be good to go for week 1 against Chicago. And that'll be very important. He's a pretty good player from last time I checked. Jordan Addison is suspended for the first 3 games of the year. It's not like the team didn't plan for that or know that was possible. It's been, prepared. The team has prepared for that for months. What they did not prepare for is on the Thursday of joint practices, Jalen Naylor, who was going to be the third receiver for this team, jammed his left hand and has missed some time here. Now, will he be available for week 1? We'll see. I don't, everything I've heard and the way that Kevin O'Connell has talked about it is that Jalen Naylor's hand injury is not going to be a long-term thing. But, you need ancillary options near Justin Jefferson with the way the defenses are going to load up against him. And one of them is obviously going to be TJ Hockenson. But if Jalen Naylor's not available, there is just no reliable and experienced depth behind him on this roster. Rondale Moore had a season-ending knee injury, suffered in the first preseason game. Then you got a group of like Tim Jones, Ja'Shawn Jones, Lucky Jackson, Thayer Thomas. None of those guys have really separated themselves. And so this team has been very active in the wide receiver market, and that's where the name Adam Thielen has surfaced. Now,
I don't know if you knew this, Alec. He actually has ties to the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, he's from Detroit Lakes. The Alec
there was someone that like dropped that as breaking news the other week. Like, hey guys, this is really important to know. It's like, come on, dude, stop.
Yes, he was a undrafted signing from here locally. I have, Alec Lewis show has learned that. The Athletic has learned that Adam Thielen played 9 years for this team and was very, very good. Look, the Adam Thielen situation, what I'd say is it makes a ton of sense for the Vikings, and here's why. First of all, beyond the personal backstory and that being such a fun thing for fans, that's great. But he knows he has an ability to, apply this offense in a 2-week span that very few guys in the marketplace would be able to. It is not an easy offense to learn. It is complex. There are a lot of intricacies. It requires the receivers to be willing run blockers. And so like Adam Thielen fits that bill. Kevin O'Connell, if he's calling plays in week 1 in Chicago, he's going to want to have confidence in those running routes. And he can have confidence in Adam Thielen. Adam has a relationship with Justin Jefferson. He has the respect from receivers coach Keenan McCardell. Like, just in a lot of respects, it makes a lot of sense. The question that I would have would be, like, how willing is Carolina going to be to just give Adam Thielen up? They paid him, I believe, a $1.5 million signing bonus. His contract is like $6.25 million base salary for this season. A lot of their receivers are young. Carolina has Tet McMillan, their first-round pick, Xavier Legette, an unproven young player, Jalen Coker, intriguing young receiver. They signed Hunter Renfrow, but I don't know how much he's taken a step. So does Carolina, with a GM and a head coach that need to continue to progress and win, do they want to be willing to give up on a player who produced for them in the back half of last season? And what is it going to take for the Vikings to pry Adam Thielen away from Carolina? Like, that's the conversation / stalemate that I think is kind of ongoing. Regardless, what I'd say is the Vikings are going to have another receiver on this roster that they acquire by some form or fashion by week 1. And Adam Thielen is the most realistic option to fit that bill. It's just going to be a matter of capital and money if they can make those happen. I fully expect that Adam Thielen would want to come back. He caught passes from JJ McCarthy this summer and workouts here locally. So it just, in so many different ways, it makes sense. And then the question that I would have would be, if it's not Adam Thielen, where do the Vikings turn? Is it a Robert Woods, who, I mean, we'll see if Pittsburgh cuts him, but there's familiarity with Robert Woods and Kevin O'Connell from Los Angeles. Is it KJ Osborne, who was here, who's at the back end depth of the Washington Commanders room, hasn't done much in the last couple of years? Like, that's it'll be intriguing to kind of see what happens if Adam Thielen is not the name. But this thing is very fluid. So while we're talking, who knows?
Yeah, very fair. Very fair. Well, appreciate the time again, Alec. I know everyone already swarms and hounds you for fantasy football updates, but everyone make sure you go check him out both on The Athletic and what's the Twitter handle?
Yeah, the Twitter handle is Alec_Lewis. I also host a podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all of that. And it's a very creative name that I chose called The Alec Lewis Show.
Nailed it.
Where we do a lot of Vikings talk. But no, I appreciate you having me. It's fun joining it. We missed Joe being here. I mean, I was going to
miss Joe being here.
I was going to pick his brain on Boldy. Like, I look, I don't know much about hockey, but I went to a Wild Bruins game last year on like a Sunday afternoon, and I came away thinking there was one guy on the ice that moves differently than everybody else, and that is Matt Boldy. And so it became a bit. Now every time he scored a goal down the stretch, like I'm a Boldy guy, and it is a bit, but I actually love Boldy. Like, I think this guy is great. So I wanted to talk to Joe about that. I'm kind of upset we couldn't do it.
There'll be plenty of time for extended chat on that. All I'll say is, it's the reason that he's the most polarizing player on the team, and fans get so upset when he has his lulls, because when he's on, there's no doubt about what this guy can do, but the consistency just continues to elude him. And I mean, let's be real, kids can't even get on his own insurance yet without mom and dad. So I think we can give him a second to maybe continue to get a little bit better. And 7x7 contract, which sounds crazy to you. I know football, that's like peanuts and also way too long, but we've got him on what everyone views as one of the best contracts in the league. He's going to come around. He's fine. He's our guy. Final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com. Throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. This is a weird one since we already did the golf question for you, the first showing, Alec. I want to know, in the NFC North, you can steal one player from each roster. Who are you grabbing for the Vikings?
Great question. And first of all, I'm gonna hashtag Boldy believer. Okay. I want that. I think, they're a segment of the Wild fan base, Boldy believers. That's what we're calling ourselves. Okay. If I could steal one player off all three teams, the Lions, I would steal Jahmyr Gibbs. The guy is absolutely electric. He's ridiculously good. The Green Bay Packers. That's a good question. That is a good question. If I could steal somebody off the Green Bay Packers. Gosh. Xavier McKinney, the safety, ball hawk, Alabama guy. I'm from Alabama. I like Xavier McKinney. Chicago Bears. Jalen Johnson, the corner, is a feisty young guy. And he's impressed me every single time the Vikings have played the Bears over the last few years that I've covered it. I'm sure there's an obvious one that I just missed or something. But I would say those three: Jahmyr Gibbs, Xavier McKinney, and Jalen Johnson. Those are the three. That's a good question.
That's a pretty good crew, though. I'm good with that. I support it.
Now I just got to go call Ryan Poles and Brad Holmes and see if they can, toss them on over here. No, I like. Is there anybody other than those three that you would? I don't know.
It's tough because like a lot of the ones that stand out, it's like, yeah, they're kind of a redundancy or unneeded. Like there's great receivers across those organizations, but it's like, do we really looking long term? Like, is that the need versus the things you brought up? Right?
I love Amon-Ra, and I think he's one of the most. I think he's still underrated. I do like Roma Dunze too.
But that's really like all I had in mind. It's like, gosh, there's so many great receivers in this division holistically, but like you got Jefferson there as the alpha. I think everyone's pretty happy with what Addison can bring as long as he can stay on the field. But that's the only other thing where my mind starts to wander a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean,
as long as no one says a quarterback, we're good.
I mean, Detroit has a Lee McNeil. He's like a heck of an interior run defender. I don't know. The Packers defense has some interesting names, but Tucker Kraft of the Packers, he's interesting tight end.
I mean, there's some interesting names on that Lions defense too, but we can go down a total rabbit hole with that.
Yeah,
so
I like that. Brian Branch on the Lions you could convince me too. I love that guy. But anyway, it's a good one.
Nice. Well, hey. Again, appreciate it, everyone. Check out the Alec Lewis podcast. I don't know how you came up with that name, but I think it's brilliant. Check out the weekly stories on The Athletic. Follow him on social medias. We're almost there, guys. Week
Boldy
1.
Believers.
Boldy Believers. We gotta workshop that. I think we can come up with something quirky. But okay. I like the concept of Boldy Believers. We'll get a good hashtag on. That's the one thing you'll grip onto for hockey. I love that. Like, don't say a word about hockey for like 3 weeks, but Boldy scores a goal. Boldy Believers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, Joe, we heard it there at the end. Alec was very disappointed you couldn't join us. Had to get me to just address Matt Boldy. He said that his hashtag this year, whenever he sees something with the Wild, is hashtag Boldy Believer. Boldy's his guy. Can you just, I mean, it's a pretty broad statement. And he just said, hey, I feel like this is a guy that doesn't get enough credit. Let's give him credit.
I think Boldy is a terrific player. And I think you saw in the playoffs what kind of dynamic, I'll not say dominant, but he was unbelievable in that playoff series against Vegas. And from all accounts, from what we heard from what Russo was at the USA training camp and I think it was Plymouth last week, and he said he looks in tremendous shape. It's just buzzing around. So like, it's hard to like not say the guy's not a star already, because the guy is able to do so much offensively. You saw what he could do in the penalty kill last year. Very good chance he'll be Olympian coming up in Milan. So I think he's a terrific player, and I think he's just takes a little while to devolve all parts of your game, but I think you're seeing some of that hard skill that I think John Hynes wanted from him. And if he can pick up where he left off at the playoffs, he doesn't need a breakout year. He's already a really good player, but I think this will be I think Bill Guerin said he could be a 50-50 guy, 50 goals, 50 assists guy. I don't know if that's this year, but like he definitely is capable of it in my mind.
It really just comes down to consistency, and people like to harp on that. Look how old this kid is. There's a lot of runway left for him to figure it out. He can't even rent a car yet, guys. Like, I do think though, like when you see the stretches that he dominates, he has every bit of that. It's just refining it, getting comfortable, being consistent, and that's going to come with time. But it's just funny looking back at some people who were not thrilled about the 7x7 contract, and now it's the darling contract of the NHL.
Yeah, it's absolute bargain. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hard to be mad.
Yeah, and like you could have one of the best players in the world in Kirill, but you need other guys that are other stars or other game breakers, and he's the Wild's next best game breaker. So I think how he goes and how he performs will go a long way with where they go in the playoffs.
That it will.
I agree, Alec Lewis. He's phenomenal.
Hashtag Boldy Believers.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys again, as always, week after week, coming out, showing your support. We really do appreciate it. As I mentioned at the start of the show, if you want to hear from alums like Nick Angel, Paul Martin, Matt Kowalska, and Brock Faber, definitely check out last week's episode and certainly dig into the stuff from the summer if you're just getting out of hibernation and finally checking back in on hockey. We've had some great interviews all summer. You can check that out either at Fellowship of the Rink, wherever you get your podcasts. I do appreciate you guys subscribing, 5 stars, all the fun stuff. Or if you're more into the video, definitely go check out the SOTA Pod YouTube channel. We do have dedicated playlists to full episodes of Fellowship of the Rink, clips, interviews, whatever it is that you're interested in, you can get your fix and not have to dig around too hard for it. Otherwise, next week, as I mentioned, Corey Pronman talking everything Minnesota Wild prospects. Really good interview on tap. And now here we are just weeks away from Wild training camp and then subsequently another awesome NHL season. We'll catch you all next week. Stay classy, State Hockey.